Usually, like when something in our lives desperately needs our attention, it has this built-in mechanism to let us know, right?
Oh, absolutely. It sounds an alarm.
Exactly. A baby cries, or the dashboard on your car lights up bright red, or your phone does that frantic vibration when it hits like 1% battery.
Right. Yeah. We are incredibly conditioned to respond to loud, obvious signals. I mean, our brains are basically wired to prioritize immediate, noisy problems.
Totally.
It's this binary system of action and reaction. And honestly, it's kind of comforting because you know exactly when you need to step in and fix something.
But what happens when the living thing that relies on you completely never actually sounds the alarm?
Yeah.
What if their greatest survival trait, like their defining characteristic, is simply blending into the background and accepting whatever you give them?
Yeah, that's where the absence of a signal actually becomes the danger itself.
Wow, yeah.
You enter this landscape where your own assumptions can do a lot of quiet, long-term damage simply because, well, nothing is aggressively forcing you to pay attention.
Welcome to today's deep dive. We are looking at a huge stack of veterinary research, breed-specific health guidelines, and behavioral studies focused entirely on the physical and mental well-being of the Cavalier King Charles Spaniel.
Yes.
But hey, even if you don't own a dog, stick with us on this one. Our mission today is to deconstruct how we care for a highly adaptable companion. We are going to uncover how an easygoing nature, which is something we usually praise, can actually become a dangerous blind spot for caregivers. Okay, let's unpack this. We have to start with the central myth of this dog breed.
Right, the stereotype that kind of sets the stage for all the misunderstandings, the classic decorative dog myth.
Yes.
When you picture a Cavalier, society has basically trained you to imagine this majestic, slightly lazy creature permanently affixed to, like a velvet pillow or a wealthy person's lap.
Like they're basically living stuffed animals.
Exactly.
Right.
But the sources point out that this reputation is built on a half-truth. I mean, do they love laps? Absolutely. They were selectively bred over centuries, specifically for companionship.
Right, so they are not working dogs?
No, not at all. They weren't built to herd sheep across the Scottish Highlands or endure freezing temperatures to retrieve ducks from a lake.
So they don't have that frantic, give me a job or I will eat your drywall energy that you see in a husky or an Australian shepherd.
Right. And the research draws a really sharp line there. Because they lack that manic, destructive energy, people just assume they don't need exercise at all. But just because they aren't border collies doesn't mean they don't need real, consistent activity.
Right, of course.
The veterinary recommendation across these sources is actually 30 to 60 minutes of daily activity. To call them lazy is just a total biological mischaracterization.
It's like having a friend who always says, I'm fine with whatever, when you ask where to eat. You know the one.
Oh, totally. We all have that friend.
Just because they don't aggressively demand a 5-course meal at a Michelin-starred restaurant doesn't mean they don't need to eat. It just means they are accommodating.
What's fascinating here is the psychological dynamic that creates between the dog and the owner. The behavioral experts call this the adaptability trap.
The adaptability trap. I like that.
Because the Cavalier is so deeply agreeable, because they will happily just sit on the couch with you. If you decide to binge watch television all weekend, they aren't going to stand by the door and bark at you to take them out.
They aren't sounding the alarm.
Exactly. And because there is no alarm, the responsibility, quietly but entirely, shifts to the owner. You have to be the one to initiate the routine.
Wow, okay.
If you rely on the dog to tell you it needs exercise, you are going to end up with a severely under-exercised dog, which cascades into a whole host of health issues we'll get into later.
That makes me wonder about the logistics, though, because if they aren't demanding a walk, I have to consciously initiate it. But when I hear 30 to 60 minutes of daily activity, my mind immediately jumps to lacing up running shoes and doing a solid, continuous hour-long slog through the neighborhood. Is that what we're talking about here?
No, not at all. Their bodies are built for companionship, which means their physiological needs favor moderate, consistent movement rather than, endurance training.
Okay, that's a relief.
Yeah, the ideal routine outlined in the veterinary text is actually breaking it up to avoid fatigue. 2 shorter walks, say 15 to 25 minutes each.
That feels incredibly manageable, like you do one before work, one after dinner.
Exactly. And you also combine that with engaged indoor play. The sources highlight that a game of fetch down a hallway or a solid game of tug-of-war in the living room contributes meaningfully.
Really? Just in the living room?
Yeah. Tug of war, for instance, isn't just tiring out their legs, it's engaging their core muscles and providing short bursts of anaerobic energy expenditure, which complements the aerobic exercise of a walk perfectly.
Wait, hold on. You mentioned playing fetch down a hallway. Wait, so you don't need a massive backyard to be a good pet owner. Is square footage actually highly overrated?
The behavioral studies explicitly validate your suspicion there. It is a massive fallacy. A Cavalier can absolutely thrive in an apartment.
Oh, wow.
The crucial metric isn't the size of the territory, it's closeness to their people and consistent daily activity.
So it's the quality of the engagement, not the size of the space.
Think about the psychology of the animal. A dog living in a small apartment with an owner who takes them on 2 structured walks a day and actively plays tug of war with them on the rug is getting immense, high-quality, focused interaction.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Compare that to a dog who lives in a giant house whose owner just opens the back door, lets them out into a massive empty yard, and shuts the door.
The dog in the yard isn't actually exercising. It's just standing there alone in a larger space.
Exactly. A big yard frequently becomes a crutch. It becomes an excuse for the owner to disengage. For a socially attuned breed like a Cavalier, isolation in a big yard is infinitely worse than engaged, active apartment living. The dog doesn't care about property lines. It cares about what you were doing with it in that space.
That is incredibly liberating for anyone listening who lives in a city but wants to give a dog a great life. Okay, so day-to-day apartment living is fine. But realistically, once you get into a routine, you want to bring your dog into your wider life, right?
Yeah.
You want to leave the neighborhood and go out into nature. If I'm taking this dog hiking, are we going up a mountain?
Well, you can certainly take them on a nature trail, but the operative word, the expert stress is moderate.
Moderate, okay.
They enjoy shared activities, but physiologically, they are not built for strenuous elevation gains or extreme heat. Their snouts are slightly shorter than a working breed's.
Right, because of how they were bred.
Yeah, which means their natural cooling system panting isn't as highly efficient at rapidly cooling their core temperature.
So no midday summer hikes in the canyon.
Mm-hmm.
That makes sense. But it also makes it tricky on a normal trail. How do you know when a dog is actually exhausted versus just taking a minute to smell the roses?
That's a great question.
Because dogs are always stopping to sniff bushes.
Yeah.
How do I differentiate between, like, I am reading the neighborhood gossip on this fire hydrant, and I'm physically tapped out and need to go home?
It really comes down to observing patterns and deviations from their baseline. It's
Ooh.
not about the fact that they stop, it's about how they move when they are walking.
Okay.
The veterinary texts point to very specific visible signs of fatigue. Are they noticeably lagging behind you on the leash when they usually walk right beside you? Then look at the panting. It's not just open mouth breathing, it's heavier, wider panting, where the corners of the mouth are pulled way back and the tongue is excessively exposed.
So they're showing you they physically cannot keep up the pace.
Yeah. And if you see labored breathing where their sides are heaving heavily just to pull in air, that is a symptom of oxygen debt. They are struggling to oxygenate their blood fast enough to meet the physical demand.
That sounds scary.
It is. If they are reluctant to keep going even after a 5-minute rest, that is a hard stop. You don't push through that. You shorten the outing. And if that labored breathing persists long after they've stopped moving, that's a red flag for the vet.
That makes a lot of sense for an adult dog. But wait, hold on. What about puppies? Everything I've ever been told about puppies is that they are these endless balls of energy, and you have to run them until they collapse or they'll destroy your house. Are you telling me I shouldn't be tiring a puppy out with long walks?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, navigating these different life stages requires understanding the underlying biology of the dog in front of you.
Right.
With puppies, the danger isn't their energy level, it's their skeletal structure.
Right.
A puppy's bones are not fully formed.
Oh, really?
Yeah. The ends of their bones feature growth plates. These are areas of soft, developing cartilage that eventually calcify into solid bone as they mature.
Oh, so they are structurally vulnerable.
Highly vulnerable. The experts warn heavily against high-impact activities for puppies. So no long continuous runs, no repetitive jumping off furniture, no forced exercise on hard surfaces like concrete.
Wow, that goes against a lot of common advice.
It does. But if you put excessive mechanical strain on those soft growth plates, you can cause microfractures or even alter the way the bone grows, leading to lifelong joint issues. Their exercise needs to be self-directed, short bursts of play on soft surfaces where they can stop the second they feel tired.
So you can't just slap a smartwatch on them and demand they hit 10,000 steps.
Definitely not.
What about the other end of the spectrum? Seniors.
The paradigm shifts entirely. As they age, synovial fluid, which is the natural lubrication in their joints, decreases, and cartilage wears down. Activity levels naturally drop.
Makes sense.
The goal is no longer burning off excess energy. The goal becomes gentle mobility. You want to keep the joints moving to prevent stiffness and keep the muscle tone consistent so their joints are supported without ever pushing them to the point of oxygen debt or exhaustion.
Okay, but realistically, let's look at the practical application here. What if physical exercise just isn't possible? Say there's a blizzard outside, or it's 100 degrees, or my dog is 12 years old and physically can't do the walks anymore. How do I stop them from chewing up my sofa out of sheer boredom? Is there a non-physical alternative?
This is where the behavioral research pivots to the crucial role of the mind. For a highly intelligent companion breed, mental engagement is not just a cute party trick. It is a biological necessity.
Here's where it gets really interesting to me. The sources talk about the hidden power of the sniff.
Yes, exactly.
They describe hiding a piece of kibble under a cup or doing simple scent games in your living room as a legitimate, exhausting workout for a dog. It acts as a true substitute on rainy days. How does merely smelling something tire a dog out?
It comes down to neuroanatomy. Humans experience the world primarily through our visual cortex. Dogs, on the other hand, experience the world primarily through their olfactory bulb, the part of the brain responsible for analyzing smells. A dog's olfactory bulb is proportionally 40 times larger than ours.
40 times. So when they are sniffing a patch of grass, their brain is firing on all cylinders.
Right. They aren't just smelling grass. They are analyzing complex chemical signatures. They're determining what animal passed by, how long ago, the gender of the animal, its health status.
That's wild.
When you hide treats around a room and ask them to find them or use a puzzle feeder, you're turning on a biological supercomputer. Processing that amount of sensory data requires intense cognitive focus, and that brain activity literally drains their caloric and physical energy reserves.
It's like the difference between us going for a light jog versus sitting down to take the SATs.
Oh, that's a great way to put it.
Taking the SATs might physically just involve sitting in a chair holding a pencil for 3 hours, but when you are done, your brain has burned so much energy that you are completely wiped out and just want to take a nap.
That is a perfect analogy. The psychological element here is critical. A dog can be physically tired from a walk, but if they are mentally understimulated, their nervous system is still buzzing. They will pace the house, they will become anxious or destructive.
Right.
By engaging their natural instincts through complex scent games, you provide them with a complete sense of cognitive exhaustion and satisfaction that a simple, repetitive sidewalk stroll cannot achieve.
That is such a powerful tool for an owner to have. Mental fatigue equals a calm dog. But all of this movement, the physical walks, the hallway tug-of-war, the mental scent games, it all ultimately serves a very vital biological purpose for the Cavalier.
It does.
We have to connect all this exercise directly to the breed's most critical health vulnerability. So what does this all mean? Why are we so hyper-focused on this specific breed's daily activity?
Because of their heart. The veterinary consensus is very clear. Diet and exercise are the primary levers an owner has to protect cardiovascular health. This breed is highly food motivated, they love to eat, and they are incredibly easy to overfeed because those big, expressive eyes begging for treats.
Oh, yeah. Which means the owner has to actively manage a strict budget.
Exactly.
Diet and exercise here act like a budget.
Yeah.
You can't just keep spending calories on treats if you aren't earning them back through movement, especially since a smaller breed's metabolism doesn't give you much wiggle room.
And the stakes for that budget are incredibly high. The medical texts note that Cavaliers are disproportionately prone to hereditary cardiovascular issues, most notably mitral valve disease.
Okay, I've heard that term thrown around a lot with this breed. What actually is a mitral valve, and why is it failing?
Well, the mitral valve is essentially a small, incredibly important gateway on the left side of the heart. It opens to let oxygen-rich blood into the main pumping chamber, and then it snaps shut to keep that blood from flowing backward.
Okay, got it.
In Cavaliers with this genetic predisposition, that valve can degenerate. It becomes thickened and starts to leak. When it leaks, blood flows backward into the atrium, which means the heart has to work significantly harder, pumping more forcefully, just to get the same amount of blood out to the rest of the body.
It's a mechanical failure. The pump is losing its seal.
Correct. Now factor in weight gain. When a dog carries excess weight, they develop more adipose tissue, which is fat. That fat tissue requires oxygen and nutrients to survive, which means miles of new tiny blood vessels form.
Oh, no.
So now you have a dog with a leaky, inefficient heart valve, and you are forcing that already compromised heart to pump harder and faster to supply blood to all this unnecessary extra tissue.
You are actively multiplying the strain on a system that is already struggling to keep up.
Which is why the experts recommend something called a body condition check, specifically a rib check, as a weekly routine.
I found this really practical, actually, because relying on a scale can be deceiving, right?
Very much so.
A scale just gives you a number. It doesn't tell you if that number is muscle mass or fluid retention or fat. But using your hands and eyes gives you real-time data on their body composition.
The tactile assessment is the gold standard for home monitoring. You should be able to run your hands along their sides and easily feel the individual ribs without having to press hard through a thick layer of fat.
Makes sense.
And visually, when you look down at the dog from above, they should have a visible waist, a distinct inward tapering just behind their rib cage, before their hips.
Keeping them lean isn't about canine vanity. We aren't getting them ready for swimsuit season. It is a life-saving intervention.
It is the single most meaningful daily intervention an owner can provide. You cannot entirely prevent a genetic hereditary condition from expressing itself, but you absolutely control the workload you place on that heart. Keeping them at an optimal body condition ensures you are giving their heart the easiest possible job.
I noticed the sources mention using tools to help manage all these variables. They brought up the VitalPet tracker, which lets owners log activity levels, daily weigh-ins, and vet visits over time.
Yeah, those can be very helpful.
Which sounds amazing for noticing those slow, gradual changes in weight or activity tolerance that you might completely miss when you just look at your dog every single day. But the techs were very careful to categorize how we should actually use that data.
This raises an important question about the line between home care and medical intervention. Tracking apps are fantastic organizational tools. They cut through our own biases and help you stay honest about whether you actually walk the dog for 30 minutes this week, or if you just thought about walking the dog, data doesn't lie.
Right, but it doesn't diagnose either.
The experts are emphatic about that boundary. An app is never a substitute for a veterinarian's direct clinical evaluation. If you observe unusual fatigue, if you see those changes in breathing mechanics we discussed, or if a dog that usually loves their walk is suddenly reluctant to go, you don't check the app to see if they are allowed to be tired. You go to the vet. Tracking apps are for monitoring long-term trends, the veterinarian is for acute diagnosis.
It all comes back to being observant rather than just relying on automated alerts.
Precisely.
So if we are synthesizing everything we've extracted from these sources today, the ideal approach to caring for this beloved companion isn't about grand sweeping gestures. It's not about running a marathon with them, and it's certainly not about buying a house with 10 acres of land just to feel like a good owner.
The science points to a much quieter reality. It is entirely about consistent, moderate physical activity tailored to their specific life stage, paired with regular, intentional cognitive engagement and honest, hands-on body condition checks to protect their heart.
It's about steady, thoughtful, daily attention. And for you, the listener, I think the biggest takeaway here is about the power of being well-informed. Being a great caregiver means looking past a subject's superficial reputation, looking past the meme of the lazy lapdog to understand the complex biological realities of what they actually need to thrive.
The data on the adaptability trap really stuck with me, and I want to leave you with a final thought that builds on that core psychological theme. We learned today that an adaptable, easygoing dog is actually at the highest risk of being unintentionally neglected simply because they don't complain. They suffer in silence to accommodate our lifestyles.
Wow. Yeah, they adapt themselves right into a deficit.
It makes you wonder, how often do we make that exact same mistake with the highly adaptable, easygoing human beings in our own lives?
Oh man, that's heavy.
We all have that friend, that family member, or that coworker who never complains, who always says, I'm fine with whatever, who never sounds the alarm. We assume they don't need our attention, our check-ins, or our support simply because they aren't loudly demanding it.
We wait for the dashboard to light up red. We wait for the crisis.
But maybe, just like with the Cavalier, the ones who blend in and adapt to us the most seamlessly are the ones who need us to proactively initiate the routine of care the most.
What a profound way to look at it. The absence of an alarm doesn't mean everything is fine sometimes. It just means it's your turn to pay attention. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive, and we'll catch you next time.